Well, welcome everybody. This is certainly being a difficult time for many of us, but I'm also impressed at how we can feel better and be better. Hannah is being so involved in her team on how to how to weather the pandemic, how to understand, how to feel better, the signs, the emotions, and I'm really excited that she was able to put this together with her team on just getting better. We have this group that meets on Wednesdays from 7 o'clock onwards, and it's called the 3 M's: mindfulness, meditation, and motion. And I've learned so much from that group, and I look forward to that. And I feel there's so many of us that can become better and understand this better. So I'm encouraging people to listen today. And if you like, please enroll in our groups and spend some time learning the science and also the practicalities, how to feel better. Take it away.
Thank you, Dr. Curnew. Hi, everyone. I hope you're having a lovely Friday night. Thanks for joining tonight to listen in on us. As Dr. Curnew said, my name is Hannah, and today I'm joined by Hafsa and Haley to talk about self-actualization. And when I brought this up during our 3Ms group, the one that Dr. Curnew just mentioned, Dr. Curnew said that self-actualization sounds like a term that lawyers would use. But as you'll see during our webinar, it's actually not that complicated, and it's very pertinent and relevant to us. So I'm hoping that you'll be able to take away something from our webinar today. We'll be covering what self-actualization means, some self-help books and online resources that you might want to check out if you're interested and feel that might be helpful to you. And then we'll also talk about ways we can work towards self-actualization in our own personal lives, and in what ways, big and small, that we can make in order to work towards it. But before I get started, I want to start by taking a break. So today is Friday. We've reached the end of the week, and I'm sure like every other week, we've had some ups and downs. So I just thought we'd start by just taking a minute. If you're just sitting or lying down, just closing your eyes if you're feeling comfortable. And let's just take a minute to breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. And just sit with your breath for a short period of time. There may have been a lot going on this week. Things may have gone to plan, things may have not gone as planned. And in either case, that's okay. That's a big part of life, right? And part of doing this, part of focusing on our breathing and bringing our awareness to the moment, is to remind ourselves that all things are temporary, and even the bad moments, the bad experiences, and bad days will pass. And so sometimes it can be really helpful to just shut off the world for just a minute and focus on what we know best, breathing. And one last breath before we get started. Lovely. Thank you everyone for participating. I hope that was helpful. I know for me, I try to reserve a couple moments in the day to do that, but it can be very difficult sometimes when we find ourselves caught up in the moment. But I encourage all of you to partake in that whenever you can. And I'm going to pass it off to Haley now to talk about self-actualization.
Thanks, Hannah. So thank you for that little mindfulness break. So we're going to have a little bit of a discussion around self-actualization, touching on Maslow's hierarchy of needs and the traits of a self-actualized person. So to start us off, just a little review of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I know we've discussed this in previous webinars and it's been a topic of our conversations, but just review in case we need one. So basically Maslow was a psychologist who argued that there were multiple motives for human behavior, which are classified now as Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So basically what he argued was that there are 4 basic needs. So first off, we have our physiological needs, and these are things that are needed for survival. So things like food, water, and sleep. Next, we have our safety needs, which are things that ensure that our lives are not in danger. So like home. Next, we have love and belonging needs, which is really important since we are a very social species. And it's really important that we get this both from ourself and for ourselves. So sorry, from others and for ourselves, which means you are engaging in self-love activities while also loving other people. And last but not least, we have the esteem needs. And these are also from others and the self, and they include things like respect and self-esteem. So all of these things kind of develop in an order. So we start off with physiological needs, and then we move on to safety needs, and then we move on to loving and belonging needs, and then esteem needs on top. However, so basically what happens is if all of these needs are met, we can enter into the realm of self-actualization. And that basically means, oh, sorry, Stuart, next slide, please. Okay, awesome. Thank you. And what self-actualization means is that we've reached our fullest potential and have become as much as we possibly can be. So reaching self-actualization can actually be pretty difficult, and some people do tend to get stuck in that esteem and loving belonging needs kind of phases there, because it's pretty difficult to actually reach self-actualization and very few people actually do it. But a key in this kind of state is that individuals are very growth motivated and become really open to new experiences. And what this means is that they kind of see everything and all events in a new way. So this is similar to what we see in children, although self-actualized individuals are not childish. They do have this sense of wonderment about the world, and they look at all experiences as beautiful, incredible, and exciting, much like a child would going to see a zoo for the first time or going into a candy shop. This amazement is kind of what is embodied through a self-actualized person on a day-to-day basis. So although we kind of went over a little small description of a self-actualized individual, there are 10 identifiable characteristics or traits of someone in this state. So Stuart, if you could just move to the next slide, please. Thank you. So there are 10, so we're going to go 5 on each slide, just as a quick little refresher, but Hannah will kind of dive a little bit deeper into them a little on in the webinar. So first off, we'll start off with acceptance. So this is when an individual takes things as they come and for what they are. So for example, they'd appreciate all the quirks they may have and don't feel the need to have to apologize for any of them. Next, we have, I can never say this word, so I apologize if I butcher this, but equanimity, which is being accepting, graceful, and calm during all situations in life, including the difficult ones. Then we have purpose, which feels a responsibility or duty to accomplish a particular mission in life. Then we have fresh appreciation, which sees the beauty in things even if they've experienced them before. So you're always looking at experience in a great way and you just see the amazement in it. And then we have autonomy and authenticity, which is maintaining dignity and integrity and being driven by your internal compass or going about it in your own way. Next, we have the final 5 here. First off, we have humanitarianism, which is recognizing that you can learn from others and that you have a genuine desire to help the human race and all other people. Then we have an efficient perception of reality. So that's, again, seeing the world and things as they are and really trying to learn the truth about people and about nature and just about different topics. Then we have peak experiences, and these are experiences in which you feel new horizons and possibilities opening up for yourself and others. Now, this is kind of a one where some people have described who've had peak experiences as it being like an extreme kind of experience. Although we can kind of have moderate peak experiences, those extreme experiences are pretty uncommon even amongst people who have reached that self-actualization potential and that state. So peak experiences are kind of a unique characteristic for a self-actualized individual, but it is still a very notable one. Then we have creative spirit, which is you do everything in a very creative way. Maybe you're really into art, or you just kind of approach things in a very like problem solving, outside of the box kind of way of thinking. And last but not least, we have good moral intuition. And this is an accurate perception on what is right and wrong, and it can determine how you may behave. Overall, it is really important to remember that these are very common characteristics, but again, even if you don't reach self-actualization, acting in these ways can kind of, and almost aligning yourself with a self-actualized individual can still be really, really beneficial for yourself and others around you.
Thanks, Haley. And before I jump into the section, I see Anna has her hand up. Anna, did you want to say something? Feel free to unmute.
No, just waving. That's the only thing I could get.
Oh,
Sorry.
Anna, I know which Anna this is. It's so great to see you on here. Thank you for joining.
Well, I saw your name and I wanted to see you again.
That's so sweet. I really appreciate you being here. Thank you for saying hello. I wasn't sure if it was you, so I didn't want to make assumptions. Alrighty then, I'll jump into this section, which is about self-help books. And some of these books you may have heard of, but they're also books that we've covered in our 3Ms group. So the 3Ms in our group stand for mindfulness, motivation, and moving. And I facilitate the mindfulness portion. So myself and Dia, the facilitator who covers the motivation part, we've covered a couple of books in our sessions. And this is one of the books I covered recently. We were talking about this for almost a month, I think, but it's a book called Ikigai by Yukari Mitsuhashi, and I'll explain a little bit more about what Ikigai means. So Ikigai is made up of two phrases. Iki means life, and gai means value or worth. So together, Ikigai means value in living. And in simpler terms, Ikigai refers to the value or the joy that a person finds in their daily life. So without this joy, their life as a whole wouldn't be happy. Now, I know in Western culture, we often associate what the Japanese culture kind of calls Ikigai. In Western culture, we probably call it our calling in life. And a lot of the times we associate our calling in life with our career or our work, right? But in Japanese culture, I think the interesting concept with Ikigai is that instead of looking at it as an end goal, so looking at something that you can do at the end of, doing all this school or pursuing all this education and learning, instead of thinking of it that way, Ikigai is more so a way of living. It's looking at life and thinking about all the small and big moments that make you feel like your life brings a lot of meaning and a lot of satisfaction and joy. So it's simply what helps you get up in the morning, what drives you, and what sustains you on a daily basis. And I wanted to add this picture below here, so this Venn diagram of sorts, because this is one of the portrayals we see a lot about Ikigai. It's the center circle over here that joins what you love, what the world needs, what you can be paid for, and what you're good at. And in the book that I just mentioned, they make a distinction that in Japanese culture, it's not necessarily something that you have to be paid for. And I think in some cases, our Ikigai probably has nothing to do sometimes with something that we can be paid for. And I'll explain a couple examples that'll explain why that might not necessarily apply. But this is one way of looking at it. And I think this description is really great when we think about pursuing a certain profession and thinking about what profession will make us really satisfied and not just feel like it's work, but it's work that feels really meaningful. I think this definition would work. But when we talk about Ikigai in general, it's more so a combination of what you love, what you're good at, and what makes you happy. Okay, so I've explained what Ikigai means. So it's the value in living. So these are some of the common examples that were talked about in the book. But again, like I said, Ikigai is whatever gets you up in the morning. It can be your family, it can be your friends, it can be your work or your career. Some people find a lot of great joy in the work they do because they find it really meaningful. It can be volunteering, it can be traveling, it can be a hobby that you've taken up, like gardening, for example. I know a lot of our patients in 3Ms really enjoys gardening. It can be going on a walk with your dog and your spouse, perhaps. It can be quality time with yourself, with your passion. So whatever you're most passionate about. Some people use their passion projects to develop side interests and side forms of income. And it can also just be quality time with the people you love as well. And if you can see, a lot of these examples are more so to do with our internal sense of satisfaction. We don't necessarily get anything tangible out of it like money, but we receive a lot of love, a lot of joy from these interactions that we have with other people. And I'm sure that many people would agree with me, but I think our ability to connect with one another as human beings is part of what makes life really meaningful. So a lot of people's ikigai probably encompasses our ability to connect and have social interaction, which has been very difficult during the pandemic, unfortunately. But that being said, I think the nice thing about talking about ikigai is that it doesn't have to be one thing. You might be looking at this list and thinking all of these things could be a form of your own ikigai. That's okay. Some people will have 10 things that make up their sense or form of ikigai, and it'll be different for everyone. And just a note, we watched this tech talk in our 3Ms group, and it's called How to Ikigai by Tamashiro. And this speaker, he used to be a radio show host, and then he realized that he didn't really love what he was doing. He enjoyed it, but he didn't really understand what about it made it so fun for him. So he kind of went on a self mission to figure out what he felt was his ikigai. And at the end of it, he describes a really interesting way of looking at ikigai. He says that he thinks his ikigai is to delight. So it's a verb that he's kind of culminated to describe what he feels brings him the most joy and the most value within his life. But some of the other verbs he asks the audience about is to think about whether our ikigai is to serve, to create, to heal, to connect, to build, to nourish, or to provide. And for each person, there will be a different verb that will apply, and there could be more than one as well, depending on what you feel your ikigai consisted of. But I thought it was a really interesting portrayal of ikigai, especially based on their own experiences. And if you would like to look it up on YouTube, just look up How to Ikigai, and it should be the first one on the list on YouTube. Okay, so I won't spend too much time on this because I know thinking on the spot can be difficult. But if you want to grab a pen and some paper and just write down these prompts, and maybe even just spend a couple of days to think about it, I think that could be one way to go about it. So earlier I said that ikigai is often portrayed as 4 parts, right? So I've taken the 3 parts, the one without what you can be paid for, and turned them into questions. So what do you love? What are you good at? And what does the world need? And we did this in our 3Ms group as well. And we got to share some of our reflections about what are some of the things we wrote in our answers. And something that comes to mind when we talked about what the world needs is that everyone seemed to agree that there seems to be a really big need for kindness and compassion in our world, especially considering all that is going on. I think especially during COVID, I've realized how important it is not to make assumptions about how someone else is doing because you never really know. And that calls for a lot of compassion and understanding and sympathy on our parts. But that's something that we talk about a lot as a group and building our capacity to be there for others and just building our capacity to make the world a kinder place. But that is something that might be related to what you think you're good at. So something that you're good at, it can be a skill, it can be a hobby, but it can also be a characteristic trait. You might think that you are the best at listening to other people. You might think that your best trait is to take initiative and to help others find courage in doing something well. I always think Dia is really great at this. Dia wasn't able to be here today, but she facilitates the 3Ms group with me. And she is our motivator in the group. She's always going on about how we can motivate ourselves to develop really good habits. So everyone has their own strengths, right? And I think when we focus on our strengths and we think about how they play out in comparison to our weaknesses, that can be another way of figuring out what makes us feel most satisfied and fulfilled with our lives. And so I want to encourage you to think about those 3 questions, see if you can find any overlap between those answers, and even just see if there's any way to connect what you've written in those 3 columns to your daily life. Is there anything that you do right now that respects and kind of is within what you've written as the answer to those questions? And feel free to share if you're comfortable in the chat. We'd love to hear what you found really interesting about writing down some of your answers. So I know I did a deep dive into Ikigai, but these are some of the other book recommendations that we've talked about in our group. So the first one is actually a recommendation from one of our volunteers, Daniela. She also couldn't make it today, but she said that this book was really great. Her mother was actually the one who recommended it to her. And it just talks about how we can be happier in general. And it focuses a lot about how gratitude plays a really big role in our lives and how in making us feel better and making us feel happier in general. And grit, I've added that one because I know Dr. Curnew really likes this book. But this one is just covering how we can build resilience when we face adversity, and what parts of ourselves do we really have to hone in on in order to get through difficult times. So that one is also a really great read. And the last one, called Atomic Habits, is all about how we build good habits and why it can be really difficult to get rid of bad habits. And it kind of outlines ways in which we can address that. One of them being the 2-minute rule. So instead of making a habit a really big, monumental, daunting task, you turn that goal into a 2-minute task. So for myself, I remember I talked about wanting to get into yoga more. So my 2-minute task was to put my yoga mat by my bedside every night so that I would remember to open it the next day. And then the more you do this, the more your brain makes an association between that 2-minute rule to the next 2-minute version. So that would be laying out the yoga mat. And then you incrementally increase how much you're dedicating to that goal of yours. And so I think that can be a really great book as well if you're looking to figure out how you can break those bad habits. It's a really great read. And then the last one I want to introduce was Dr. Curnew's book. Next slide, please. So this book is by Dr. Curnew. It's called 30 Days to Healthier You. I'm sure many of you have already heard about this one, but I did want to share it because part of feeling better, part of doing better is to make sure that we're doing what we can to educate ourselves and try new things to be healthier. And I don't know if Dr. Curnew has any comments about this book, but I thought this is also a really great self-help resource. There's a ton of information in there that I think all the patients I've spoken to have found some tidbit of information that they were left with really finding helpful for their own journey to becoming healthier. So really encourage you, if you haven't heard about this book and want to learn more, feel free to let us know at the clinic. All right, and I'll pass it off to Hafsa.
All right, so now we're going to be speaking about some of the online resources that can assist you in your journey as well. So next slide, please. So one way to develop self-actualization is through cognitive behavioral therapy. And CBT is a form of therapy that essentially helps us understand and change the thoughts and feelings and behaviors that are causing us problems. So in other words, it helps us learn how to kind of change those negative cycles of thoughts and behavior so that we can function better in order to improve our quality of life. So there's a number of online resources that can assist you in your journey to getting there. And here are 2 online CBT programs that are free of charge for all Ontarians. The Government of Ontario has provided free access to these programs specifically in light of the pandemic, which has negatively impacted the mental health of people in so many ways. So the first program here is Mind Beacon. So for this one, when you sign up, you'll start with an assessment to better understand the issues and challenges that you're facing. From there, Mind Beacon assigns you to a registered therapist who will help create a unique treatment plan for you and oversee your progress. And you'll have readings, activities, and check-ins in the guided CBT program that will help you develop new skills. So you'll also have weekly check-ins with your therapist to keep track of your progress. And again, Mind Beacon covers so many different concerns that you might be experiencing, like anxiety, depression, trauma, grief, coping with chronic illnesses, health-related anxieties, sleep problems, and so many more. So the second one you see on here is the Ability CBT. And this is very similar to Mind Beacon in that you'll start off with an assessment of your needs through completing an online questionnaire and connecting with a professional therapist through phone, video, or messaging. You'll then move through 10 structured modules at your own pace while your therapist monitors your progress. And each module has activities, videos, and assignments to help you learn, develop, and practice new skills. And while you go through these modules, there are scheduled check-ins along the way where you can connect with your therapist through phone, video, or messaging. And I also wanted to add that Ability CBT has a special program to help you address anxiety symptoms that are specifically related to the challenges because of the pandemic. So things like uncertainty, isolation, caring for family members and community members, information overload, and stress management. So that's a great program that you guys can check out. Next slide, please. So another resource we wanted to share is the Bounce Back platform. And this is also a free program that is managed by the Canadian Mental Health Association. It offers a guided self-help program for those older than 15 years of age who are experiencing mild to moderate anxiety or depression, or maybe feeling low, stressed, worried, irritable, or angry. And Bounce Back offers telephone coaching, skill building workbooks, and online videos to help you overcome these symptoms and gain new skills to regain positive mental health. Next slide, please. So how this works is that you can essentially sign up for coaching. And in order to do that, you need a referral from your primary care provider, or you can use a self-referral by providing a primary care provider's contact information. Coaching is delivered over the phone with a trained Bounce Back coach and through online videos as well. Next slide. So at the moment, the program has longer wait times than usual. So if you're waiting to hear back, you can still make use of the Bounce Back Today videos. These are available online on their website, and all you have to do to access them is just sign up on their website. And these are super beneficial. And if you want, you can even just choose to go through these videos before signing up for the actual coaching program. So that's it for me.
Thanks, Hafsa. I hope if you're interested in looking up those resources, I think we can also leave those links probably in the description as well, right, Stuart?
Sorry, yes, absolutely.
Perfect, no problem. But yes, if you're interested in looking up those resources, I think they're really great, especially the two first programs that Hafsa talked about. They are free for Ontario residents. So if you feel that you would really benefit from having the extra support through those programs, feel free to look them up and see if you can access those services. So for the last little bit, I'm going to talk more so about how we can work towards self-actualization. Okay, so earlier when Haley was talking about the 10 characteristics that has been studied as part of being a self-actualized person, I looked at some of them, including acceptance, having a fresh appreciation for things, and having an efficient perception of reality. If you look at those three things, the first thing I thought about was being grateful. So we talk a lot about this in our mindfulness videos, but gratitude creates a state of self-contentment and acceptance of life. This is it flows up and down. There's a lot of positives and negatives that are always co-occurring, and gratitude really helps us hone in on the positive, even when it seems like the negative is outweighing it. And so I want to encourage you right now to think about 3 things you're grateful for today, and think about how they're related to perhaps your physical, your mental, or social well-being. And I really want to point out here that gratitude has so many benefits, both studied and also just perceived, when it comes to improving mood, our health, being able to cope with adversity, and just building stronger relationships. I think when we have a deeper appreciation for each other, that really helps to strengthen our connections as well. And so, all around, being grateful has so many benefits for us. And having the ability to have that childlike wonder, being appreciative, that also is a part of reaching self-actualization and working on the traits that build up a self-actualized person. And in relation to gratitude, so one of the traits we talked about was peak experiences. And so these are moments of profound happiness, and they're often characterized by this heightened sense of wonder and awe. And some of the examples listed here are watching a beautiful sunset, listening to the ocean, the excitement that you feel during the final moments of a sports match. So those are some of the examples, but it's not exhaustive. And you can probably think of some personal moments and memories that have led to peak experiences. I know for myself, one of my peak experiences is going to the cottage with some friends. We just watched the sunset, and I remember really feeling like almost like I had transcended kind of the current moment. It was a beautiful sunset, which also helped. But I think in general, having those experiences, it's very rare. And I think it's partially rare because we often do things without really thinking too much about them, right? And it goes back to being mindful and paying attention to what is going on in the moment. And so having these peak experiences not only contributes to working towards being a self-actualized person, but I think in general it just gives us the ability to have that fresh appreciation for our experiences, for the people that we have as a support system, and also just for aspects of our life that we often don't perceive or take for granted on a daily basis. And as I said, when it comes to peak experiences, I see it very much akin to mindfulness. So mindfulness is referring to having a non-judgmental awareness of our thoughts, sensations, and the surrounding environment, right? So I think when we're relating it to peak experiences, if you could just click one more time, Stuart. Thank you. Being mindful creates that mental and emotional space for us to have peak experiences. And I think the best way to describe it is when we're being mindful, we get to pay attention to what is happening around us. We don't pay as much attention as to what is going on in our minds and thinking about all the thoughts, all the things that are happening tomorrow, what happened yesterday. Mindfulness grounds us in reality, into the present moment. And I think that is when we have the capacity to pay attention and find joy in whatever we're looking at or whoever we're with. So I think it's really interesting to see how the two concepts can be really related, I think. And something to keep in mind when we talk about being or trying to achieve self-actualization is that it's an ongoing process. And like Haley said, when we actually look at those traits, some of those are really hard to develop over the course of a lifetime. And not everyone is going to achieve a fully self-actualized state. And that's not the goal when we talk about these 10 traits, is to look at these 10 traits and think about where in our lives they're applicable and what we feel works best for us in making us feel good and feel better. And so I think something to remember, and this goes for when you're making health changes and lifestyle changes. And in general, when we're trying to accept challenges, accept the fact that we've come across an obstacle, it's really important to be self-compassionate as you're taking chances, taking risks, and doing work for yourself. That can be exercise, that might be trying to lose weight, that might be trying to eliminate negative self-talk. These are all things that are really difficult to do. And while you kind kind of pursue that journey, a lot of the times we encounter difficult parts. It might not be working, you might be reaching a plateau. And in those moments, it's really important for you to recognize that you are doing a great job. And I think one of the things I always remind myself is that our bodies and our minds do incredible things for us. And on a daily basis, there are so many functions that we're able to do just by allowing our bodies and minds to repair themselves, to let them do their jobs. And so I think the least you can do is to be grateful towards both of them, take care of them, but also say nice things, just like we say nice things to other people that we love and care about. And so I just want to encourage you all to really reach out to your support systems, use your own affirmations if that's helpful for you, and really find ways to ensure that you feel validated and feel seen and appreciated, because that's a really big part of making sure that you're able to overcome difficult parts of life. And so this book, so I read this book to our 3Ms group more than a month ago, I think. It's called The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. And I really wanted to mention this. They absolutely loved it. So it's a book about these 4 characters, a boy, a mole, a fox, and a horse. And they encounter one another as they're going about their own journeys. And a lot of these pages covered really important and I think topics that would really resonate probably with everyone in some sort of way. They talk a lot about how we often underestimate what we're capable of, but they also talk about the importance of having connections and the importance of realizing how much we are capable of. And I want to share a couple of the pages. So I think if you click twice through it, there should be 2 pages that pop up. So these are some of the pages. So this first one is, what else do you think? I think, said the horse, you are doing better than you think. And this next one is, what do you think success is? Asked the boy. To love, said the mole. And I just want to recommend this as a book. I know one of our patients bought, I think, a few copies of these to share with their grandchildren. It's the kind of book that I think people of all ages would really appreciate and enjoy, almost like Winnie the Pooh. I kind of got that sentiment from this book, but I would highly recommend you take a look at it at the bookstore if you ever come across it, because I think it's a really great representation of being self-compassionate. And the last thing I want to share was during our 3M session this week, I asked our group to tell me if they had to give a piece of advice to someone about the key to living or being happy, what would they say? And I asked them to tell me some of their suggestions or reflections based on some of the topics we've talked about in our 3Ms group. And this is some of the suggestions they gave. They said, forgive yourself. It's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to ask for help. Do what's right, not what's easiest. Focus on the journey, not the destination. Life is made up of little moments. Make each count. Do what makes you happy. Don't care what others think. Care about what you think of yourself. Don't forget to laugh and laugh at yourself. You're so much bigger and brighter than your imperfections, setbacks, and pain. You can't take care of others until you take care of yourself. If you don't know what to do, try something different. Be vulnerable and embrace failure. Just because it's hard doesn't mean you can't try. And the only thing that conquers fear is action. And I just want to share this because I know in our group, myself and our facilitators we do our best to teach everyone in the group something new every week. But I think this goes to show to me that there's a lot that we learn from the people who attend our 3Ms group as well. I'm always learning something new, learning something from someone else's experiences and past and things that they've shared and reflected on. So I think it goes to show how much we can learn from another person. given our various cultures, given our various backgrounds and experiences. And I just want to share this in the hopes that one of the sticky notes, if you feel like you've been needing a little bit of encouragement, I think one of these sticky notes may help with that. And so that actually wraps up our webinar today. So to provide some of the highlights, self-actualization refers to that concept when we've kind of transcended all of our other needs in that pyramid. So once we've met all the other needs, the top of that pyramid is self-actualization. And while not a lot of people will achieve true self-actualization and have all the traits that encompass one, it's really important to remember that that's not the goal of life. Self-actualization is an ongoing process, and we all have our own strengths that really encourage us to grow and teach and connect with others. And so self-actualization is just a concept that can help us think about ways in which we can work on in order to be happier and feel better. And we talked about several self-help resources today, like the books that we talked about, as well as the online CBT programs that Hafsa talked about, and the online website program called Bounce Back as well. And of course, like I said at the end here, it's really important to be self-compassionate to yourself, especially when we're making really big life changes, making lifestyle changes that can really rock our world. I think it's really important to remember that you have support around you. That includes the support you have at the clinic. Please feel free to let us know if you need an extra hand or just some extra support in terms of following through with these journeys that you're going on. That's part of what we do at 3Ms, is providing phone calls to patients who are looking for just a little bit of support and encouragement as they're trying to make those changes, because it can be very hard to continue with goal setting and to fulfill those goals. So it helps to have that accountability. But again, it's super important for us to create space to feel positive emotions and to also feel validated in all the ups and downs that we go through. And we just wanted to promote our clinic website that is coming soon. Stuart or Dr. Curnew, I don't know if you had a few words to say about it.
Absolutely. Thank you for passing it along to me, Hannah. I just wanted to provide a bit of an update for anyone who might be interested. Our team of volunteers have been working really hard on a website for Dr. Curnew. As many of you might know, we have so many different programs, resources that we've developed in addition to our YouTube page. And so we wanted to come up with a centralized place where we can share all of the different resources and provide updates all in one place. And so while it's not quite ready yet, we do think that we'll be able to share it sometime within the next few weeks. And we're really hoping that this website can be a place for you to access, one, information about the clinic if you're a new patient, but also other information about perhaps how to use our YouTube page, how you can benefit from some of the different resources and programs that we have, of course, with our clinic's focus on patient education, professional counseling, prevention, and self-management and encouragement. These are all central traits that Dr. Curnew and his entire team really balance and try to implement in the care that they provide. And so we're hoping that this website can be a place for you to... I'm just going to turn on. So yeah, again, we're really hoping that this can be a place for you to come and find out about all the different and exciting things that are going on at our clinic. And with that said, I will pass it back to Hannah to close us off.
Yeah, so I think in terms of last words, thank you for listening and listening to our webinar tonight. I hope you enjoyed some of the resources that we shared and just talking about why it's so important to be self-compassionate to one another, but also to ourselves. So important, and I think oftentimes we underestimate how valuable it can be to say something kind or to just be grateful for one another. So I really encourage you to keep that in mind as you go forth. And again, if you have any questions or inquiries, please feel free to email us or to look at some of our other amazing YouTube videos created by our volunteers on our YouTube channel. And I guess the last sentiment I had was one of the pages from the book I mentioned, The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. Sometimes I think you believe in me more than I do, said the boy. You'll catch up, said the horse. And with that, I guess we'll conclude our webinar. Thank you.
I want to just thank everybody for this wonderful moment. I learned so much from these young people. And I remember a statement my dad said to me when I was around 13 or 14. I said to my dad, I want to be older. I want to be a grown-up. And he said, enjoy being 13. And what I want to say to everybody is enjoy today, and be grateful, because one of the things that there are challenges, but you know what? We're all a work in progress. Be kind to yourself and other people, and just keep getting better. And I want to thank Hannah and her entire team for what they've done. Stuart for putting together a website. We had one before that unfortunately got attacked by viruses and things of that nature. But you know, you just move forwards. And you know, today I think I'm a better person because of the people around me, and I'm really grateful for to serve, and I'm really grateful to have all these young people teach me how to be a bit better me. So they'll teach you too as well. Thank you so much, Hannah and Stuart. I'll give Stuart the last word.
Well, I just wanted to thank Hannah, Haley, and Hafsa for putting together a tremendous webinar. I was thinking in my head, I should call you folks the Triple H Club for putting together such a great presentation. A subtle nod to our Triple M's Club that we also have going on. I really enjoyed this webinar. As I was sort of listening and reflecting, I was thinking a lot about a significant life change that my family and I implemented this week. We recently adopted a short-haired brown tabby cat from a shelter in Waterloo. This is my first pet. I've never really had anything other than fish growing up, so it's really been exciting to bring on a pet in our household. It sort of combines the thing that Hannah was talking about with Ikigai, where it's about two of the four pillars is what you love and also what the world needs. For me, I really love animals, so I was so excited to be able to adopt this cat. But in addition to that, whenever I think of animals, I always think that they bring out the best in a lot of people. They demonstrate the qualities that a lot of us often strive to have in our daily lives. Hannah touched on them: kindness, patience, understanding, and compassion. These qualities are no more important than they are now, especially with the circumstances we've been through over the past few years. And so for me, taking care of this cat over the past few days, I see it's also brought out those qualities in me. Patience, welcoming it into a new house, a new territory where it's obviously going to be a little spooked about being in a new place with new people. But me also having the patience, compassion, and understanding that it might take a little bit of time for it to open up to me. I think these are all qualities that I hope to try and implement in my daily life. And while I'm not always successful, it's certainly something that I'm always working towards. And so for me, this webinar made me reflect on adopting a cat. Something that's so new for me. And again, I just really did want to thank the three leaders for putting together such a phenomenal webinar. One that really seems like a really perfect time to have it, especially as we go into the spring and the summer after a long winter, and hopefully having more opportunities to reconnect with the things we love, whether it's spending time outdoors, seeing family a little bit more, and doing those things that are important for our own physical and mental health. Thank you so much. And with that, I would like to pass it back over to anyone who maybe has any questions. Anna, I noticed that your hand is up. I wondered if you had a question or if you're still just giving us a nice little wave. If you'd like, I can unmute your mic.
Nice little wave. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us, Anna. Thank you so much, everyone else, for joining us. We love having you every single Friday, and we look forward to seeing you next week. With that, I
just want to say thank you to everyone. It was fabulous. Fabulous webinar again.
Oh, thank you, Elizabeth. It was great having you here. And
fabulous.
And if you are interested in joining our Triple M's Club or are interested in any of the resources or links that we shared in tonight's webinar, that will all be posted in the description of this YouTube video, so you're welcome to check that out. With that, I want to wish everyone a good night. And
night, everyone.
We'll see you next week. Take care.
Have a good